Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to yet another conversation around national security. It's the quasi defense podcast, if I may say that. I'm Anand Narasimhan. With me, as always, is Lieutenant General T.P. Pandey. General Pandey, we are speaking on the cusp of what is a historical visit and also the timing of it with the geopolitical, geo-economic aspect of it, geo-security aspect of it is one. The other part that for the person who's visiting us to choose Bharat as a destination to come also has a lot many layered meanings. For you, how would you first look at it in terms of the top three, four reasons why we need to underline the significance of this visit?
Yeah, so I think when you look at the tapestry or the landscape of geopolitics changing in the world, 21st century has been a major transformational shift, right? From Euro America centrality to some degree of focus onto the West Asia Gulf. The shift of frictions is shifting in Asia, Asia Pacific. I'd rather say this. But this visit, this is, if I'm not wrong, it's the 10th visit of Putin to India, and it's very significant if you see where this visit lies. I've wrote an article which just got published yesterday, actually in News Analytica by General Winters 2025. Is Ukraine-Russia thing going to survive, and what will be outcomes on the other side of this thing? I wrote this article and look at the fast pace of evolution of geopolitics happening. I wrote about 15 days or 20 days back. In 15 to 20 days, within 15 to 20 days, 28-point program, ceasefire plan has come about. The Europeans have hardened their stance by talking of SFAE, safe, against going through the ceasefire plan based on what actually Russians want against the Trump. The shift is fantastic, too fast for any person who's actually observing the churnings which are happening. So I'll first come about the point which you said about defense equipment and defense related thing. Number of times defense related signatures or what do you call agreements uh, take the eyeballs, right? But unfortunately, there are a large number of other things which happen, which are beyond the purview of this thing, which are much more significant, and why the Putin visit this time is important not only for Russia, but for us as well. And I'll not talk of defense equipment at all of this. Firstly, it is unshackling of Russia from the subservient system or which was happening with China, which is taking place, right? That is one part. Second is he needs to put into the world's perspective that I'm not alone. I'm with the world. Sanctions, all right. There are trade implications. They have shut down our the energy routes, and there are issues that are happening. But yet, there's a very prominent player which is looking into the eyes of the Western powers and talking, dictating terms on their own condition. We are facing immense headwinds, by the way.
Yeah.
Like in terms of trades, we have come down about 10 to 12% of our export. There are issues which are happening. Our rupee has gone up, depreciated to about 90 now. There are challenges, but yet, a lot of people are looking at it negatively challenge. But outcomes which are coming out eventually in the long term in the strategic realm for our country, is going to be significant. So the visit of Putin at such a time to this country shows that he's visiting a country which is standing on its own, right? And therefore he aren't alone in this whole shift from unipolar to bipolar to a multipolar world is important for him. Then the other facet which I talked of, again I'll relate to this ceasefire plan which has been given. 28 point has been modified to take into the concerns of Europeans. The worst of which I think he wants to put the European onto the spot, because number of Indian trade agreement and engagement which is happening into Europe today are actually one-on-one. That whole system of globalization has now fallen apart. It is free trade agreement which is taking place, which is on very final cusp, with Britain, with England, with France, with Germany. There are a number of talks happening. And if you recall, in last about 2 days, the three countries diplomats in India have written into paper, into newspaper editorials and columns to talk uh, about Putin's arrival as a negative step for our country. Right. So look at the play which is happening. India suddenly has become a place of contestation by the Americans, which is pushing us to start behaving and start pushing, isolating and cutting off our long-term engagement which we have been having with the Russians. They are using the European powers also to sort of isolate us. And on the other side, the Chinese are trying to engage with us. So this leverage, suddenly India, we may look, a lot of people who look negatively may say that we are into trouble spot, but I think is that bride which is being engaged and talked for or suited for by all these,
by many suitors.
by many suitors, including we don't talk very often, and we must talk more often than not about Brazil, about the global south, which are very, very important player for us.
So I think the message from Russia has been very clear that everything else on the ceasefire is we can work out. Our immediate need is one. Ukraine has to openly and give us a sovereign guarantee that they will not join NATO. So it's not about NATO nations saying we will not admit Ukraine into NATO. It's about Ukraine very clearly saying we will remain neutral land and we will not join NATO. I think that's been the single most important condition that has been driven by the Russians for a long, long time. And the annexation of Crimea, if my memory serves me right, was also around the time. And to try and protect the interests of Russia in terms of access to warm waters, because at that time, during Obama's time, again, this whole conversation of Ukraine joining NATO came to the fore. Russia has always believed that Ukraine is its own borderlands. That's what Ukraine actually means. And that NATO should not advance eastward because you're coming right to my doorstep. So that's been Russia's point of view, saying if NATO lands in Ukraine, that means access to warm water ports for Russia is zero, and then how do they trade with the entire world? So that's the Russian point of view. Bharat has very clearly taken a position where they say this is not the era of war, and we will engage with both sides, and we want both sides to sit down and talk and resolve matters. Donald Trump has said Putin is a friend, and I understand what Putin is trying to say, but Ukraine doesn't seem to understand. At a time when we are being questioned for buying Russian oil, at a time when we are being questioned for engaging with Russia, America is buying fertilizer from Russia, America is buying energy from Russia, uh, Europe is buying energy from Russia. In fact, Germany and UK and etc., some of these nations have gotten exemptions from this hypocrisy. When is Bharat going to call this out on? The
Yeah,
other
I
thing
think
is our neighbor is also watching in the neighborhood, the Chinese and the Pakistani. So there is a China-Pak America axis in this region, which in the past the Russians have helped us counter. Yeah.
Yeah, so what has happened is that when you go to war, and that is why, as even I am a military person, I am somehow very not very confident. When you go to war, your position in power starts coming down very fast. So Russia, Americans went to a couple of wars and see where they have landed up. Russia went for Ukraine-Russian war and suddenly where they have compromised. But these are circumstances which have pushed the Russians to go to war. I think let's be candid about it. And hypocrisy is the second name of the Western powers. Unfortunately, they will continue to do slavery in a different form. They'll push you for globalization, but they will put barriers for their own goods. They will not give you enough what you require to manage the climate and all. I'll not get into the whole part, but please look at this thing very clearly. How the shift has taken place when this Russia-Ukraine thing happened. The Americans wanted to go for war, push Ukraine. Europeans didn't want.
Yeah.
Because their all gas pipelines, energy pipelines were totally tied into, and their economy was at a very, very low ebb. After 3 months, when they have been able to diversify as much as possible, right? Now suddenly the switch has happened. The Americans who were spending the maximum into this war in terms of equipment and money and everything And oh, by the way, they were looking for destruction, then reconstruction advantages. Now that is not happening. The money is gone, the equipment has gone, their own ammunition stockpile, missile stockpile, whichever they had to give, has started coming down to very critical levels. Now Americans don't want to go for war, and Europe wants to continue. How sudden shift has taken place between the two orientations? Well, the common playground has been Ukraine. Unfortunately, the last Ukrainians are going to die for the cause of America and for the Europe, not for the cause of Ukraine. And even in the multipolar power world, Russia continued to rank somewhere in the competition with the EU and Russia. They were quite a balance at number 3, even as late as before the war started.
Yeah.
But the fact is that how can you deny? You are pushing a country to go for war, right? Which had no ambitions. While Putin was talking of reclaiming his lost heritage, but the fact is he was not looking to expand the boundaries. Nowhere in his attestations, talk, chatter, it has come about of old Soviet boundaries to be talked of. They had reconciled. I think this pushback, and unfortunately, what is happening is, if you see the timelines, it is the Democrats in America, whenever they have come to power, they have tried to sound very reasonable, but they have pushed against Russians more often than not. Right?
They have been more expansionist towards the east via NATO, trying to get more and more European, smaller Central European, Eastern European nations into the ambit of the West. The liberal policies and trade and a great lifestyle and all of that, and you pump in money, and then suddenly you have puppet governments, there are riots orchestrated, regime changes happen. And there was this whole analysis which said that Warsaw is far over. 30 years ago, Putin had said, Warsaw is over, end NATO. And he had said, I don't want NATO to move eastward. And NATO has just kept moving eastward. 26 European nations have joined NATO in the last 30 years, if my memory serves me right. But where is Warsaw now? There's no Warsaw Pact. So is this not hypocritical, and why is nobody calling this out? So when somebody says this, they say, oh, you are pro-Putin and you are this one, etc., anti-democratism and anti-liberalism and this and all of that. But the reality is, who's expanding and who's not?
Yeah, so Jaishankar, I think, has said very often about it. Our political dispensation cannot be as overtly articulate about it. I think as a Minister of External Affairs, he said as much, including what I think our Minister of Commerce said very recently, you can't put a gun onto our head and tell us to sign wherever you want us to sign. I think that calling out has been done by India as decently. We are the nice guys, as decently it can be done. But the strategic maneuvering which has been done, that in spite of being pushed by taking Pakistan into their cudgels, Pakistanis who've been stabbing in the back of the Americans, the Europeans, have been again taken back into the cudgels just to spite India, right? It is not only about the rare earth material or going back to Afghanistan, but more to push India to start behaving the way they want to behave. And unfortunately, they should realize that something like Russians, like India, Bharat and China, all three are civilizational powers. The more you push them to doing something which they don't want or take sides and positions, you'll find that will be hardening. If you engage positively, you'll have better response rather than trying to push them into corner. And that is what will happen with China. It will also happen with Russia, and it's happening with India. So I think that is why this visit with Putin coming to India is very important for us for him and for us to actually continue to talk about our strategic autonomic position. While we will continue to engage with Russia, we are willing to open to keep on talking to the Americans, to the Chinese, to Europeans, to Global South, because as the Prime Minister says, Vasudeva Kutumbakam is the way forward. You just can't get after one country because you don't like them or don't like their whichever reason, I think.
They say that you cannot choose your neighbor. So you have to learn to live with your neighbor because that's what you're saddled with. But a question is also that, do you see this RIC bloc developing? If this Russia, India, China, and there somewhere Bharat will be very uncomfortable because Bharat has not had a great experience engaging with China. China's diplomacy tool and their trade, weaponizing trade, and their whole of government approach, something which Bharat has borne the brunt of. It's a different engagement that Russia, China have, despite their fights with Vladivostok and their conflicts, and it's not that they have not had their conflicts. So, how do you see this? And if you were to gaze over the next 2, 3 years, do you see these sanctions remaining? Do we see more trade? And there is a huge trade imbalance with Russia also. We import more than we sell to them. Now, how do I convert rupee to ruble? Market forces, all of these also are
So
factors.
I will not talk about economy right now. But the first thing is about the strategic orientation of the Chinese. I always keep on saying that Pakistan is only a trouble child, right? But our real competitor or country which we need to be actually aware of and be very, very wary of is China, because it has got the economic leverage, it has got the technological advance. They are much, much ahead. A lot of people ask me, and I am quite blunt about it, they are about a couple of decades ahead of us. Yes, we got advantage of our terrain, we got advantage of geography, right? Which China, whatever they may have, technological advantages, but they can't actually get ahead of us or take some silly action or military action against us. So first is that we need to continue to be wary about China, because till the time they overtly talk of a shift, right, which is over a period of time, you can't trust them. So therefore, RIC, we may use SEO forum, we may use RIC, we may BRIC forum, everything, but to trust Chinese is a huge, huge challenge. The Chinese know it, and unfortunately, they are not doing enough to ensure that they can be trusted by at least India, if nothing else, because frankly, we are not in competition with China or US or anybody.
Yeah.
We are only trying to survive a population which has to come up, and we never had hegemonistic or expeditionary orientation which the Chinese have, right? They want to have a multipolar or bipolar world till 2050. Thereafter, they want to overtake America. But till that time, they want to be unipolar or the only sole power in the Asia region, which virtually they have achieved actually. Today, none of the powers, in fact, very fortunately now, Philippines and Japan and even Indonesia has started, and Australia have been started telling the Chinese to slightly back off because they are being also pushed to a corner. So that is one part. But on the other side, even Russians are not comfortable. Please understand, it's a virtually today a slave master relationship which is coming up, because Chinese are actually driving that knife wedge into the Russians, because they know, and Chinese are very, very smart. They are as smart and as brutal as the Americans. When you know that you're cornered, they will actually push their agenda very, very hard and solid. They are doing number of things. They are doing number of things in terms of the military equipment, defense equipment, in terms of taking out economic leverages, in terms of expansion, or for having footprints along entire Siberia, which is quite close to the Chinese border. So when you look at number of things which are happening out in Russia, I don't think Russians are very comfortable. And this visit actually is trying to tell the world and the Chinese that we aren't under your shadows. We can balance this power play with India, Russia, China, and we should be treated nearly as equal, but not as a as a vassal state, which China has started to treat Russia. So don't go by, and this I think I spoke on the platform, by what happened in SEO. The China wanted everybody to be there. So therefore, for a period of time, that mask came down, and then back the masks up. But what is happening at the lower level is very, very scary. So we need to be watchful. But yes, on the other side, when I look at BRICS, right, then the larger game is that China also wants to pull down dollar, wants to de-dollarize. So this is where the deafness today, fortunately, again, if I say it become political today, there is a government which has got a strategic orientation, which understands long-term play rather than looking at short-term tactical maneuvers. And I think they are playing it out, and therefore they are maneuvering, managing what is required to be done between the global south, Europe, America, Russia, China, and very subtly we are emerging as that one of the powers which may not be equal, but we require to cast our vote
Yeah.
to allow something to happen, right? So therefore, this I think this visit should be exploited in terms to make statements about encouraging Ukraine and the European powers and the Russians to come to some degree of deal, and which I think are some talks have been happening with the Russian and Ukrainians at our top government levels,
Right.
which should
Because I think Bharat is outside of America one of the few nations which can talk to both sides, and also talk openly and frankly to both sides. And I think that's kudos to Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his team. Let's just quickly, because Putin is here at a time when there is also trouble brewing in the neighborhood. So the last 4-5 minutes that we have, let's look at what's happening in Pakistan. Now, how would you read what is happening in Pakistan? An interesting perspective that came from one of the Pakistani journalists the other day on the broadcast was that this whole thing around Imran Khan was built up to try and deflect international attention from what's happening on the Durand line and in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So that's one of the reasons why they said, okay, let's distract. The other thing was the military trying to send a message to the current political establishment that just like we brought you to power, we can bring back Imran Khan. So we can raise this bogey at any point in time. The political dispensation waiting and holding back on the CDF notification saying, hey, if you want to stay on for 5 years, you guarantee me that I'm not going to go anywhere for the next 10 years. That's what's coming through now, that they want to bring back Nawaz Sharif, and that's how they want to run this thing. In this kind of a scenario, what's going to happen next?
Yeah, it's very interesting flux. I'll very quickly wind up because I think we are short on time. You said Nawaz Sharif was the one who propped up Musharraf and got very badly bitten by Musharraf. Okay, thrown off, and thereafter he's not been able to come. They have seen Benazir Bhutto being blown apart. They have seen Zulfikar being hung, and each one of them has been done to their death or to ignominy by the people whom they brought to power. And Nawaz Sharif brought Asim Munir into power through that very soft, radical deceiver when he became the chief and did their bidding. Actually, they did their, Asim Munir did not do exactly the bidding of the political dispensation. He did the bidding of the Americans to put Imran Khan away, right? So currently also the leverage remains in the hand of Asim Munir, right? But what Shahbaz Sharif and Nawaz Sharif understand that the day he gets this 5 years bang on signed on open-ended envelope, their destiny is actually will be hanging around death and stuff like that, But actually, I don't think they have got much choice. They are also being under control of Saudis and the Americans. They will delay, they will barter for some period of time, but they may have to sign off on the CDF, and you'll have Asim Munir taking control. But that point which he said was to take off the sheen from what is happening in KPK on the Durand line. If you recall, we again discussed of the same thing.
Yeah.
The TLP movement took place. They killed about 1,000 people. You imagine, the news got buried. And while the killing of 1,000 people was there, Shahbaz Sharif was there in that Sharm Sheikh, this thing,
Cairo.
was virtually bending down, licking the boots of President Trump, which he says, okay, you on the sidelines, you have been praising me, you come up front and tell the public what you've been talking to me and sucking up to me. So, they killed, and no human rights organization, Americans not called out Asim Munir and his ilk that you killed about 1,000 people of your own. TLP is supposed to be the leader of Asim Munir and Pak military. They killed on their own people. So I think Asim Munir has got the grips within the political, the judicial environment. The levers are in his hand. He can't kill Imran Khan because he is Pashtun today.
Yeah.
In any case, the Pashtun tribes are up in arms. And the today Pak military establishment remains consigned and controlled to Pak Punjab only. And there also the levers of Al-Qaeda, the hardline Islamist, which is now coming out, is not challenging the power play of Pak military. So very interesting time. The only thing I look at it, those fires are not going to fan towards our borders because we got secure borders. The only thing is हमारे लोगों का ना दिमाग नहीं खराब होना चाहिए. कुछ लोग हैं, they'll start looking at it as a positive to do similar things here. But those fires are going to fan towards the western side. And that is where I'm sure you are aware. The Qataris failed, the Turkish
Now
people
the Saudis
failed.
are coming in.
Saudis have failed already. It happened day before yesterday.
No, but the Saudis have said that they're going to try it again.
Again, okay. I, as per my knowledge about day before yesterday, they had a meeting
Yeah, they did.
which fell apart. And you see, Pak Punjabi ego, that ego is huge. They will not like to give in to the Taliban and to Pashtun or agree to anything. And this is what is going to kill them. Right.
So do you see Pakistan getting into the throes of martial law very soon, or do you see this kind of a monkey?
No, it is already in a martial law.
But this is quasi-run by
Yeah,
so officially, Asim Munir taking
No, I
over.
don't think so. In case these people don't sign off in about a week's time, then possibly he may come up. But he's smart. Asim Munir is far more smarter than Musharraf and Ziaul, and actually he's combination of both. And therefore he's learned from history that if he comes as a martial law administrator, then his, after all, how long will he live?
Yeah.
Right. So he's got all the power with the politician taking all the negative this thing. So let the parliament run. After all, you look at Shahbaz Sharif. He's not even a sidekick.
Correct.
Of Asim Munir. When he goes, Asim Munir is engaged. He's the toast of the town. Shahbaz Sharif is not even consulted. He's not even invited as a head of state anywhere. So he's just trying to showcase in front of the uniform there's a civilian face. He's running the country, right? He's running. It is only when they allowed Imran Khan could meet, his sister could meet Imran Khan, it took how much of time, and look at the bashing which KPK chief minister got manhandled, right? Very, very publicly. So I think Pakistan military continues to rule the roost, but they are smart, and I don't think I don't think so. They are going to declare martial law per se. He may continue to.
So this entire facade of a democratic setup may continue in Pakistan, but I think our focus through the weekend and on our coverage has been what larger part of our conversation was the road ahead for Bharat post the Putin visit. And as the dust settles, we will initiate the next conversation to look back and, of course, then look ahead. Because like you said, things are changing fast. And by the time we converge for our next conversation, things may have moved in a particular direction. General Pandey, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Thank you.
Namaste.
Always good to be here.